Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sthapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the Supreme God Incarnate, who came to establish universal religion, the embodiment of all religions in the world. Let us pray to him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, from death to immortality. Today's topic I am continuing the last topic which we did in the last class, how to wipe out ego. The cause of all our suffering is ego. The cause of suffering is because of extreme worldliness. The disease of worldliness has tainted the mind completely, paving the way for intense suffering. What is worldliness? Intense desire for enjoying the pleasures of the world. Then terrible anger, greed, jealousy, hatred. All these constitute worldliness. Because the mind is totally diverted towards these things of the world, mind is totally destroyed by the impressions of the worldliness. So, what happens is, this worldly nature form a kind of thick coating on the mind. That is why we are unable to perceive the immense glory of the Atman within us. So worldliness is to be fought with spirituality. Spirituality means cultivating spiritual qualities, preparing one's mind thoroughly in a systematic way to lead spiritual life, and to develop Ichcha Shakti, tremendous willpower to undertake the spiritual journey. Life is a great adventure. All our faculties and the mind are being come in contact with nature of the world, losing their subtleness. Mind has become so gross, it's impossible for the mind to dwell upon the subtle nature of the Atman. So, why man cannot see God? The answer is very simple. He can't see God on account of the barrier of Maya. Maya means illusion. It is the ego that separates the Jiva from Brahman. Ego here means immature ego. Avidya, ignorance. Once the ego is removed, the Jiva, that is the embodied being, realizes that he is none other than Brahman himself. Then Sri Ramakrishna says that Jiva is nothing but the embodiment of Sachidananda. But since Maya, our ego, has created many upadhis, Jiva cannot realize that he is Sachidananda. Suppose through the grace of God or through spiritual practices, we are successful in rooting out this ego. The sense that I am the doer, I am so and so. Even then, this ego may again somehow revive. Sri Shankaracharya says in the Vivekananda, Samula kruttopi mahanagam punarvyullekitaha syadyadi chetasakshanam sanjivya vikshepashatam karoti nabhasvata pravrushi varido yatha. Vivekananda is a famous text composed by Adi Shankaracharya, full of divine ideas, spiritual ideas, to inspire our intellectual faculty. We have to cultivate Viveka. Very important. So the meaning of this verse quoted from Vivekananda is that even though completely rooted out, this terrible ego sense, if revived in the mind, even for a moment, returns to life and creates hundreds of mischief, like a cloud measured in by the wind during the rainy season. That is the treacherous ego. You might ask, how can this ego, in Sanskrit it is called ahankar, which has been destroyed, again come to life. It is like the dead being revived by the sprinkling of Amrit. Thinking of the sense objects is the cause of it. Even though we somehow overcome and conquer the vile ego, we shouldn't allow our mind to dwell on the sense objects. That's very important. If we allow the mind to ruminate on the sense objects, all our bad impressions may again be revived. An example is given. Suppose there is a citron tree which has dried up. If we go on watering it, the apparently dead tree may flower again. Likewise, the sense impressions may recede into the background after we have made some progress in spiritual life. But even then, we must be cautious lest the sense of ego should pull us down. That means one has to be careful and alert, focused on the goal till it is realized. That's the point. Attachment for even a most innocuous, insignificant thing may pull us down and may lead us into endless bondage. To counteract this, one must be ever alert and ever vigilant. There was once a person who renounced everything, both externally and internally. His only possession was his loin cloth. But he was deeply attached to it. He even forgot the purpose for which he had gone to the forest. To save that loin cloth from being eaten by rats, he thought that he should get a cat. So he bought a cat. But how to feed the cat? It has to be given milk. So he thought that he must now get a cow and bought one. But then, who will take care of the cow? Then he thought, oh, I must have a wife. And so he married and had children. This is how ruminating over sense objects will cause the ruin of a spiritual aspirant. Those who are sincere seekers after truth and want to realize their divine nature must not encourage anything that take the mind downwards. In the Gita, chapter 2, Lord Krishna says, he analyzes the fall of one from godhood. Dhyayato vishyan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. Excellent verse. When a person dwells mentally on these objects of senses, attachment to them is produced. From attachment springs desire, and from desire comes anger, if the desire is not satisfied. From anger arises bewilderment. From bewilderment, loss of memory. And from loss of memory, the destruction of intelligence. And from the destruction of intelligence, he perishes. So that means he is the cause of his own ruin. When man goes on thinking of objects, what happens? As Lord Krishna says, he becomes attached to them. From attachment comes desire, and if one's desire is not fulfilled, then arises anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, loss of memory, which leads to cessation of the discriminative faculty, and finally one perishes. In one of the verses of Vivekananda, we see that armed with sword of discrimination alone, we can cross this ocean of worldliness. So if we lose discrimination, that is Viveka, there is no hope of salvation. Again Shankaracharya says, the downward trend of the chitta in the verses in Vivekananda. Vishayeshva vishayechetah sankalpayati tad gunan samyak sankalpanat kamaha kamat pumsaha pravartanam tata swarupa vibhramsho vibrashtastu padatyadaha patitasya vinanasham punarnaroha ikshyate sankalpam varjayet tasmat sarvanarthasya karanam apathyani vastuni vyadigrasto yathotsrajet. Shankaracharya describes in the Vivekananda the mind attached to sense objects thinks of their qualities. By such strong thinking about them, desire for them arises. Desire leads to action in regard to them. Due to that, a man gets deflected from his real nature. Thus deflected, he falls down. One who has fallen down comes to ruin, and for him there is hardly a chance of going up. Therefore, one should give up thinking of sense objects, which is the cause of one's undoing. Even as a sick man should avoid a painful diet. Sense objects will produce their impression on our minds. We have to move about it. We have to move about in this world. We can't keep our eyes closed, and we can't keep all the organs shut. Naturally, we are to live in this world, and different kinds of sense impressions will come. You can't avoid them. But trouble arises when we entertain a longing for these sense objects. Swami Chidananda ji, one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he has written a number of valuable letters. In one such letter, he advised a devotee, write on your mind's door, no admission. Different sense impressions will come. Let them come. I will meet them as a master and not as their slave. The trouble begins when we allow ourselves to be victims of different kinds of sense objects with all their allurements and enchantments. Therefore it is said, if the object comes to our mind, nothing bad is going to happen. But if the mind loves that object and also runs after it, then the trouble starts. Therefore, if sense impressions come to our mind, we should not allow ourselves to be overcome by them. One is the master, the lord of oneself. Yet, if one doesn't have what is called Ichcha Shakti, willpower, or it may be that the Ichcha Shakti is weak, then one may fall a victim to the allurements of this outside world. If one allows himself to be a victim of the outside world, what happens? He becomes a slave to the world of appearances. He forgets his real nature. He falls from the ideal. If this happens, there may scarcely be a chance to rise again. Therefore, we must be very careful. We must have the determination that we must reach our desired goal in this very life and be merged in the bliss of the divine. We must discover our real self. This outside world has cheated us in many previous births. We should make up our mind not to allow ourselves to be cheated or deceived by this outside world anymore. We must take to the discipline of discrimination. If we do not do so, we may go down and down. As again Vivekananda says, mind slips down from the highest ideal to the lowest. Hence, to the discriminating knower of Brahman, there is no worse death than inadvertence with regard to concentration. But the man who is concentrated attains complete success. Therefore, carefully concentrate your mind. Not to fall, we should reject the tendency of the mind to contemplate on the objects of pleasure, which is the root cause of all mischief. Suppose one is suffering from some disease and a doctor is sent for. He comes and says to the patient, I prohibit you from eating such and such food. If you follow my advice, you will be cured of the disease. Similarly, if we want to be cured of this disease of worldliness, we are to renounce the sense objects which are like the forbidden food. If you want to overcome worldliness, you must reject and rise above all kinds of sensuous thoughts. Who runs after sensuous thoughts? Who runs after sense pleasure? Why do they do so? Knowing fully well that running after sense pleasures may cause their downfall. Why is it that we can't control ourselves, and why do we allow the mind to ruminate over the unreal things of the world? Sri Shankaracharya has given the answer through a verse in the Vivekananda. Dehatmana samsita eva kami vilakshanaha kamayita katham syat athortha sandhana partvam veda prasaktya bhavabandha hetuhu. He alone who has identified himself with the body is greedy after sense pleasure. How can one devoid of the body idea be greedy like him? Hence the tendency to think of sense objects is verily the cause of the bondage of transmigration, giving rise to an idea of distinction or duality. Why is it that we run after sense pleasures? Because of our identification with our body. One who has identified himself with the body is naturally greedy for sense pleasures. But one who is devoid of such bodily identification will not run after sense pleasures. Therefore, being concerned with the sense objects is the cause of bondage. And this again is because of Veda Prasakti, the sense of distinction of duality. Perception of plurality implies constant contemplation of the world of objects. What is the truth? The truth is that the Atman alone abides. Brahman alone is true, and we are Brahman. Yet we forget this and descend to a lower level, to our lower self, and identify ourselves with the body and mind. Then naturally desires come. Further, our identification with the outside world and our taking the outside world to be real is possible because we see plurality. But the truth is unity of existence. Brahman pervades the entire universe. If we are established in that unity of existence, Brahman, then the goal of human life is fulfilled. We will swim, so to say, in the ocean of perpetual bliss. All the great ones testify to this, and we should not have any misgivings or any doubt about this. Here is a subtle philosophical truth. Kama means desire. Who is a kami? One with desires, a sensuous man who is permanently merged in the idea that he is the body. As long as one has this feeling, I am the body's demand for sense gratification will be there. And one becomes, let us be frank, shamelessly sensuous. Such a man thinks of the body only as a body, and against this, Swami Vivekananda said, stop this wrong identification. The spirit, now seen as body, must realize itself as spirit. The moment one realizes that, one is released. This gives great hope for us all. For the realization of the supreme truth, we need not necessarily wait for hundreds of years or even for another birth. Some philosophers speak of what may be called post-mortem realization. We are not interested in it. The question is whether it is possible in this very life and in this very body itself. Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, and other great ones assure us, yes, it is possible, provided we take care of the means. If we take care of the means, the end will take care of itself. So, the point is, we should sincerely engage ourselves in spiritual disciplines. All these things we are discussing to know, to diagnose properly, why are we suffering from. And this diagnosis will help us to apply the remedy properly. Man suffers because of ignorance. Ignorance. This ignorance is his sense of ego. When a man is free from this egoism, surrendering his life, his mind, and his intellect to the blessed feet of the Lord of all, renouncing all that he calls his own, then is he blessed indeed. That man alone is only truly happy. Everybody thinks he is infallible. Deluded by egoism, man regards himself as very important. He doesn't even want to believe in the existence of God. He never seriously considers how little he can understand with his intellect. The aim of all spiritual practice is to destroy the sense of ego. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when the ego dies, all troubles cease. As long as we are egoistic, so long is he at a distance. He means God. The master used to give this illustration. As long as the manager is in the storeroom, the head of the house does not go there. If anybody asks something of him, he directs that person to the manager. Sometimes man becomes so egotistic and thinks himself so important that he does not even accept the existence of God. It is this ego that binds a man in Maya. There is no escape until you feel, not I, but thou, my Lord. Sage Narad attained devotion and knowledge of Brahman. How? By serving holy men. Ego is destroyed through service. Under no circumstances give up your spiritual practices. If you give up the practices of japam and meditation and engage yourself solely in work, egoism is bound to arise in you and you will become the source of quarrels and disharmony. Renunciation is of the first importance. It destroys all ego. Without dispassion towards the world, faith and love do not grow. You must have dispassion. Unless work is accompanied by meditation, japa and other spiritual practices, its very spirit is lost. Then one forgets it. It is the Lord's work and not his own. Egotism and pride come, and instead of being purified by the work, the heart becomes defiled. So japa and meditation and all such spiritual practices are very essential. Then the work becomes yoga. Meditation on God will obliterate the ego, and you will then be all in all. Only when your mind reaches this state will you be able to do genuine philanthropic work. Know it for certain that if one goes on performing one's duties under the sincere belief that one is doing God's work, one can never suffer spiritually. God protects such a one forever. But the fall comes as soon as egoism and attachment creep in. Along with work, you should definitely practice meditation and japa regularly. That helps in maintaining a balance, and a little intrusion by the pride and egoism is not a thing to be worried about, for God himself will put you under circumstances necessary for the wiping out of that little defect. As for pride and egotism, these can come even to the man engaged in austerities in solitude, who may then think that he has become a big ascetic. If you are true to yourself, if your thoughts and actions are in accord with each other, pride and egotism can never assail you, whether you are engaged in spiritual practice or service to God. One must have diligence so long as one has the notion of ego. Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Premanji, another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, said, Sri Ramakrishna has made us nobodies. You also have to become nobodies. Wipe out all vanity and all sense of ego. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when the ego dies, all trouble cease. Not I, but thou, O Lord. Look at the life of Nag Mahashaya. There was not the least trace of ego in him. Girish Chandra Ghosh used to say, Maya tried to bind Nag Mahashaya and Vivekananda in her net. But Nag Mahashaya became smaller than the smallest, so that Maya's net could not hold him. And Vivekananda grew bigger and bigger. He became one with the infinite, and the net was too small to bind him. Beautiful statement. Always remember, Lord is the doer. If ever the idea that I am the doer enters into your head, the Lord instantly flies away. All efforts then will be in vain. Therefore I say, Premanji said, be careful. Let not the unripe ego ever enter your heart. Pray that you may only be the instrument in the hands of the Lord through his grace. Then only will you become a real karma yogi. Overpowered by ignorance, man remains subject to anger and egoism. To be dispassionate means to be freed from passions and from egoism. To achieve that end, man practices spiritual disciplines. And egoism, it is truly hellish. It is this egoism that has kept the whole world under delusion. Only with the greatest austerity can one be completely freed from ego. Be active, free yourself from all sense of ego, and work selflessly. Be very careful that no sense of leadership or any trace of selfishness enters into you. Whatever you do, do as a servant of the Lord. Let the strong wind of dispassion rise in your minds, that the trees of desire be uprooted. Then even as birds fly from the shelter of trees before a strong wind, will the ignorance of selfishness, jealousy, hatred and egoism take flight from your hearts. Then shall peace follow and fill your lives, even as calm follows the storm. The root cause of all desire is the ego and our identity with the physical body. When the ego dies, all troubles cease. Then alone a man attains immortality. Do not pay any attention to the opinions of others, good or bad. What is necessary above all is to see God in this life, in this very body. Then from your mouth will come forth the word of God. Egotism and conceit will have left you. Brush aside all hatred, jealousy, selfishness and egotism. If you wish to become holy, you must sacrifice all ego. So, we must ponder on these ideas deeply and try to take corrective steps so that we are truly going in the spiritual path. Everything is open. Don't think that spiritual life is hidden or it is meant only for a selected few. No. Spiritual life, worldly life, they exist. They go in parallel lines. Use your wisdom. God has given all the faculties. We are abusing them in the sense we are using all these faculties towards the worthless worldly things of the world. If all these faculties are directed towards knowing the truth, reality, then our life becomes blessed. So, the hallmark of a devotee is humbler than the humblest. And so he becomes greater than the greatest. Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, page 1012. One day during the rainy season of 1881, Sri Ramakrishna and a number of devotees visited Surendra's house. It was about dusk. The master entered the drawing room on the second floor, when several of Surendra's neighbors had already gathered. Keshav had also been invited, but could not come. Trilok and a few Brahma devotees were present. A mat covered with a white sheet was spread on the floor, and on it had been placed a beautiful carpet with a cushion. Surendra requested the master to sit on the carpet, but Sri Ramakrishna would not listen to him and sat on the mat next to Mahendra Goswami, one of Surendra's neighbors. Mahendra to the devotees: for several months I spent most of my time with him, meaning Sri Ramakrishna. I have never before seen such a great man. His spiritual moods are not of the ordinary kind. Master said to Mahendra, how dare you say this? I am the most insignificant of the insignificant. I am the most insignificant of the insignificant, the lowliest of the lowly. I am the servant of the servants of God. Krishna alone is great. Krishna is none other than Chidananda, the indivisible Brahman, the water of the ocean, looks blue from a distance. Go near it and you will find it colorless. He who is endowed with attributes is also without attributes. The absolute and relative belong to the same reality. Why is Krishna Tribhanga bent in three places? Because of his love for Radha. That which is Brahman, he is also Kali, the Adya Shakti, who creates, preserves and destroys the universe. He who is Krishna is the same as Kali. The root is one. All these are his sport and play. God can be seen. He can be seen through the pure mind and the pure intelligence. Through attachment to lust and gold, mind becomes impure. The mind is everything. It is like a white cloth just returned from the laundry. It will take any color you dye it with. Knowledge is of the mind, and ignorance is also of the mind. When you say that a certain person has become impure, you mean that impurity has colored his mind. Surendra approached the master with a garland and wanted to put it around his neck. But the master took it in his hand and threw it aside. Surendra's pride was wounded and his eyes filled with tears. He went to the west porch and sat with Ram, Manmohan and the others. In a voice choked with sadness he said, I am really angry. How can a poor Brahmin know the value of a thing like that? I spent a lot of money for that garland and he refused to accept it. I was unable to control my anger and said that the other garlands were to be given away to the devotees. Now I realize it was all my fault. God cannot be bought with money. He cannot be possessed by a vain person. I have really been vain. Why should he accept my worship? I don't feel like living anymore. Tears streamed down his cheeks and over his chest. In the meantime, Trailokya was singing inside the room. The master began to dance in an ecstasy of joy. He put around his neck the garland that he had thrown aside. Holding it with one hand, he swung it with other as he danced and sang. Now Surendra's joy was unbounded. The master had accepted his offering. Surendra said to himself, God crushes one's pride, no doubt, but is also the cherished treasure of the humble and lowly. The master now sang, Behold, the two brothers have come, who weep while chanting Hari's name. The brothers who in turn for blows offer to sinners Hari's love. Behold them, drunk with Hari's love, who make the world drunk as well. Embracing everyone as brother, even the outcast shunned by men. Behold, the two brothers have come, who once were Kanai and Balai of Braj. Many of the devotees danced while Sri Ramakrishna sang this song. When the kirtan was over, everyone sat around the master and became engaged in pleasant conversation. Sri Ramakrishna said to Surendra, won't you give me something to eat? Then he went into the inner apartments where the ladies saluted him. After the meal, Sri Ramakrishna left for Dakshineshwar. We shall stop here. So here also in this passage we see how Sri Ramakrishna removed the poison of ego from the heart of Surendra. The very garland which he threw away, he took it up, wore it, and danced with great joy, making Surendra realize that one should be free from ego, pride, vanity, boasting, power, position, all these things. So, suffering can be removed. Suffering is there because of ignorance. Suffering is compared to darkness. Open the lamp of wisdom. Darkness of suffering goes away. Any questions? Pratibha Devi? Yeah. The upadhis means adjuncts by which uh, we are bound. I am rich man, I am poor man, I am untouchable, I am superior, he is inferior. All these different types of feelings, they are all called upadhis. We are attached to this world on account of these upadhis. So we have to get rid of these upadhis. That's the point. Any questions to ask? See, he has created that mind, that evil propensities. If he is not able to get rid of that, then the only way is to suffer. To suffering, he has to get rid of it. So sufferings are great educators. They educate us, provided we are ready to take lesson. There are people who don't learn even through suffering. But generally they learn. Generally, when the suffering comes, people run to God. To whom else they run? Tell me. They come to God. Is there God to take care of me? Girish Chandra Ghosh had that tremendous suffering in the mind. He was almost desperate and in utter depression because of his bad way of life. He himself said, I have committed Himalayan blunders in my life. He felt so much disgusted about his life. He went to Tarakeshwar Shiva temple, famous. It is near Kamarpukur. On the way to Kamarpukur you can see Tarakeshwar. There he fasted for 3 days and he began to pray to Lord Shiva. Oh Lord, that's the first time he is praying. Since his boyhood he had not prayed to God. And because this intense suffering opened up his mind towards spirituality. Is there any hope for a most wicked person on this earth? Is there any hope? That was answered. The answer was, he came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna. And the result was, Sri Ramakrishna accepted him and tried to remove all the impurities of his mind, layer by layer. Layer by layer. So, there is hope. But initial step should be, you must open up your mind. Whatever is done, finished. Don't think of the past. But start from where you are. Simply wailing and crying will not solve the problem. Simply if you cry, I am sick, I am not well, does it cure the sickness? You go to the doctor, take the medicine and take treatment and allow some time for the medicine to act, then you will be cured. It is just like that. Worldliness is also a disease. Bhava roga is compared to disease. So bhava roga vaidya, this disease of worldliness can be cured only by God himself. That is a person who has realized God. Bhava roga vaidya. Paramatma. The point is, there is hope because there is divine spark in every one of us. As Vivekananda said, each soul is potentially divine. So we have forgotten that divinity because of the impurities of the mind. As I said, the impurities have formed a thick coating on the mind, which doesn't allow to experience the divine glory which is in us. Clean the mind, you get into it. Cleaning the mind means practicing spirituality. Practice. Practice depends upon everyone's faculty. Some people have to do more practice. Some people with little practice they go up. Depends upon the mental samskaras. So create good samskaras, develop good habits, get rid of all worldly qualities. It's not simply enough to know the weakness. Of course, that is the first point. Many people don't know even that weakness also. First of all, to recognize the weakness, then the immediate step would be to get rid of the weakness. So that is the way you should conduct yourself. It's a soul's journey. The soul has to travel himself or herself. Nobody comes to you. When you come to this world, you came alone. When you leave the world, you go alone. So it's a journey of the soul alone. Carry on the journey properly, know the path and go. That's the point. We shall stop. Any more? See, the desire for spirituality comes through the association with holy people. Secondly, through studying the sacred scriptures which teach you the spiritual ideas unbiased. You must know what is what exactly. Then it gives inspiration. So you must be in touch with such people who know the subject properly and who practice spirituality in their life. So that helps you to come to spirituality. As I said, spirituality one has to struggle. First of all, you must know the greatness of spiritual life. Very important. You must have firm conviction, without knowing what is spirituality. Spirituality means getting rid of worldliness as much as possible. Then only the idea of God, the idea of divine ideas will all be possible to practice. In the initial stage, you may feel difficult, but by constant practice, you'll be able to overcome the difficulties. For example, we do retreats in the Ganges during summer time. They are all very useful. In fact, we have got one retreat in this month. What date it is? 17, 18, 18, 27, last weekend of this month. The Brahmarupananda from Washington DC, he conducts retreat on the famous Upanishad, one of the major Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad. It deals with the knowledge of the Atman, what is what, etc. Who is Jiva, who is Paramatma, all these things. It's a nice thing to hear about. That's the very first step in spirituality, Shravanam. You must hear what is what. So then it helps you. It's a study life. It's not that you can finish immediately and get a degree within a few months. Not like that. The hard and practice. You have to practice. You have to prove your mind is pure. Then only you will realize the importance of realization. Then you will understand realization also. The meaning of realization. Realization means realizing who you are. Who am I? Am I this body which is perishable? Am I this mind? Am I this intellect? I am independent of all these things. So that theoretical conviction you must firmly have, and then you must practice to reach that conviction. Then becomes realization. It takes time. Chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean, and quenching that mighty forest fire, worldly lust raging furiously within. O name, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart. Opening his cup to knowledge of thyself, O Sir, drowned deep in the waves of his bliss, tasting his nectar at every step, breathing in his name that bought my very souls. Various are thy names, O Lord, in each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy, how huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass, be patient and forbearing like a tree. Take no honor to thyself, give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or revenue, the playthings of lust or the ties of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as just beneath thy feet. Oh, how I long for the day when instant separation from thee, O Lord, will be the 1,000 years, when the heart burns with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be, in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of their arms, nor bewailing the dwell of their presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stillest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. May all be free from dangers, may all realize what is good, may all be actuated by noble thoughts, may all joy everywhere. May all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all realize what is good, may none be subject to misery. May the wicked become virtues, may the virtues attain tranquility, may the tranquil be free from bonds, may the free make us free. May good abide all people, may the sovereign virtuously rule the earth, may all beings ever attain what is good, may the worlds be prosperous and happy. May the clouds pour rain in time, may the earth be blessed with crops, may all countries be free from calamity, may holy men live without fear. May the Lord, the destroyer of sins, the presiding deity of all sacred works, be satisfied. For he being pleased, the whole universe becomes pleased. He being satisfied, the whole universe becomes satisfied.